Hello, folks. Internet. This is me, Keller. This is Mr. Max. I'm host. He is the other guy here on our show, Life and Apparel. We're going to be talking about anything menswear, from the history to different contexts to how to dress like a gentleman in the best way possible. This is episode 6, right? Numbers. And we're going to be talking about waistcoats. We're also going to try to talk about shirts. We're going to kind of do a 2-in-1 episode if we can here. Anything go over first?
Yes. So in our previous episode, we talked about trousers, and I always like to remind the audience that these are really, really big topics to cover in one episode. But we want to be able to quickly, get the most amount of information to you in one digestible format as possible. Mm-hmm. But I did receive a comment in person about our pants video from a coworker of mine, specifically regarding how I addressed female physiology. I was mentioning about pants and why gentlemen need a fuller cut trouser, saying that the male leg is more muscular, etc., etc. But she was very quick the other day to remind me that women can have very muscular legs as well. I wanted to say that I acknowledge that. I overlooked that. So I guess the moral of the story is that both men and women should wear full cut trousers in that case.
Yes.
That was the takeaway from that.
Not just gentlemen, but ladies too.
Yes.
Embrace the full cut.
How I learned to stop worrying and embrace the full cut. But yeah, we're going to be talking about waistcoats today because we've harped on it quite a bit. And you've always seen us wearing a 3-piece ensemble. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we want to talk a little bit about some of the new pieces that we've come about.
Yeah, sure. You want to go for it?
Yes. This is a new suit that I picked up off of eBay for $130, and it's allegedly a bespoke made suit. I don't think it's bespoke made, but
could be.
Yeah, from the 70s, and there's some definite telltale signs. So the 70s, for example, they really like to do a top stitch, as opposed to pig stitching. They did a top stitch around the lapels, around the edges of the waistcoat, and it doesn't have a buttonhole on the lapel. That's a common thing you find with the 1970s. But it does have the flared pants, and the trousers on this are the highest waisted trouser I have ever seen, let alone worn.
And 15 inches, right?
Yeah, hopefully this will show up on the camera. But 15-inch rise on these pants with a zipper that is meant for blue jeans, I'm assuming. It also has frog mouth pockets that go like this. That was a very 70s thing to do.
Really unique suit here.
I'm lucky that my suspenders are short enough to actually work on these pants.
I think they're awesome, the high rise. So
no, it's great. It's nice. I just got it back from the tailor, and I did have to change all the buttons out because I got it in a little bag in the mail, and the buttons immediately disintegrated the moment I tried to put it on. So I changed all the buttons out to kind of like a coffee brown.
Good to me.
Well, and I was wearing a brown suit to the tailor, and so I have brown socks on. I forgot to bring an extra pair.
Better than me. I only had blue.
Blue left. Yeah, that's happens when you run out of laundry and you try to make it work. So the
yeah,
brown goes
a little
with the
blue
buttons.
striping, a little blue stripe.
Yeah, so we could call it a day. Yeah.
Today I've got this suit. It's a 2-piece here. Got it from Max actually.
Yeah, that's one I'm too fat for.
And it's lovely. It's a suit.
It's I mean it's a Drago Super 130. And this is a half canvas suit.
Yeah. Nice fabric. The lapel rolls here are beautiful.
I had to spend a lot of time fixing those because when I ordered the suit, it came folded in half in this very thin box, and the lapel roll was going all the way down to the second button here because this is still canvas down there, and so I had to give it a lot of TLC.
Yeah.
But anyway, waistcoats.
Yeah, no, this is also new. This is a Pendleton, beautiful plaid red waistcoat.
Well, for the viewers who don't know, what is Pendleton? It's a mystery brand that we've recently discovered on eBay.
Yep.
There were a number of listings from different vendors for these vintage Pendleton waistcoats, and they're all plaid like this.
Yeah.
I bought one.
Brass buttons on most of them.
Brass buttons on most of them, and they're all going for $25 to $30.
And they're excellent.
They're actually quite nice.
They're excellent.
I wear it just to annoy one of my coworkers. He hates stuff like that, and I'll kind of talk to him and strike a pose.
Yeah, nice and loud. I like it. If it's a tartan, I don't know what it is. Might just be plaid.
It's a tartan. Tartan.
Who knows what it represents, though? I've got 3 of these now. Max gave me one. It didn't work out for him.
No, I'm too tall for it.
It's a blue one. I've got a kind of dark green one, so here's my red one. So I'm kind of in love with these. You convinced me to do this.
Well, and I think that segues back into the original topic, which is waistcoats, and why do we wear waistcoats all the time? And I wear waistcoats. Well, these days I wear them out of habit because I've worn them with my suits for so long that I can't imagine wearing a suit without one. And the waistcoat was a necessary part of the suit for a very, very long time, for centuries, up until really the 1920s, when the waistcoat became optional. And the waistcoat was also, for many decades, the centerpiece of your wardrobe, such as that. And so this is a kind of thing that I don't do it as much anymore. But Keller is young, so he can be more bold and less conservative in his dress. But the waistcoat, I would always have something, not just contrasting, but really have something going on that was eye-catching. Whereas the rest of the suit was a little more toned down. And if you look at historical pictures, especially from the late decades of the 1700s, and then oddly enough from the 1830s and 1840s, those decades, they wore some wild waistcoats with fabulous patterns and those sorts of things. So the waistcoat primarily serves to bridge the gap between the two halves of the coat.
Because originally, the original idea was kind of to keep you warm, right? When it was first made, and now that doesn't really, we have air conditioning in this half of the world, in most houses, so that doesn't really apply to us. But it's like you said, it's just out of tradition and a habit, and to me, right, it makes my outfit look more complete.
But the waistcoat really does tie in the entire outfit. It's one of the reasons why like I've always said, I can't imagine wearing my suit without one. Because we may, in this episode, start touching upon the shirt, or we'll just touch upon it now. The shirt, for me at least, is underwear.
It's like the canvas to build everything up.
It's a but more than that, it serves like the same exact practical purpose that things like boxers do. It is the layer that is in most direct contact with the skin. It serves to protect your outer clothing. That's what the shirt does. It like underwear, it protects your outer clothing from your body. And so when you wear the waistcoat all the time, you'll start to feel like my shirt really is underwear, and I don't want to show a great deal of it.
I think we mentioned it in episode 2 or 3, how, especially Max and most of the time me, if I'm not wearing a waistcoat, it can feel a bit immodest to show all this shirt because it's like underwear. You don't walk around with your pants off.
And the shirt is, of course, a completely unstructured garment, and so it's just kind of flopping around, and
it's not meant to be pretty.
No, and when it comes to also like your neckwear, the waistcoat gives you a great opportunity to coordinate the rest of your outfit with your neckwear. So you can, like Keller has this red tartan, and he's got a tie that one of its secondary colors is red.
Yeah.
And I think also, is that green? I can't.
Yeah, there's a bit of green and some blue in there.
Yeah, so it helps to kind of coordinate that entire outfit. Whereas when I always think about when you're watching the news and a politician comes on, and they're always wearing a navy suit,
always
super plain,
narrow tie.
with a narrow tie and a white shirt with a way overly starched collar.
Super spread, yeah.
Super spread, starched collar. The tie is the centerpiece of the outfit. Now, I don't consider the tie to be an accessory. I consider it a necessity
Yes.
to the suit, but I do believe that the tie as the centerpiece, if you're, or as the most colorful part of the outfit, should sit as close as possible to the face.
Yeah.
It should do nothing to draw the eye down towards the crotch. Because ultimately the tie, having the shape that it does at the bottom, if it's a boulder tie,
It is an arrow.
it's like an arrow pointing down to the crotch, and it's not very elegant.
We'll touch more on ties and neckwear in the next episode.
Yeah.
But I think that's a pretty good summary of our ideas behind why we wear it and kind of historically how it's been worn. Of course, the shirt isn't exactly like underwear. If you're working or it's super hot, I might take the coat off.
Oh yeah,
Right.
you'll find examples of what they call woodcuts, which are the engraved images that they would use in the 18th century of laborers, and they're working in unbuttoned, knee breeches, and they're just their shirts.
Yeah.
But in polite society, especially when you're with company or you're presenting yourself publicly, you would never expose huge amounts of your shirt.
It's not that it's taboo, more that it's kind of rude.
Right, and then that's when the waistcoat, like I said, comes in to bridge the gap between the two parts of the coat.
For example, when I'm at work, and I almost always have a waistcoat on, I don't feel as bad taking my coat off if it gets hot, like I'm running up and down stairs for a while, because I have something to cover most of my shirt.
Right, and it helps to keep you looking smooth down and sleek.
Yeah.
But with the waistcoat, though, we should probably talk a little bit about different styles.
Yeah, and so the first thing you might notice is Max is a three-piece suit. That means the waistcoat is
a full
cut,
three-piece.
a full suite of clothes, and it's cut from the same material. It looks the same, whereas I have an odd waistcoat. Very bright and flashy, really the centerpiece along with the tie of this outfit, and it serves to contrast my trousers and my coat. So it might be the first difference you can notice. As for the actual cut and the style,
well, they're just like a coat. They're going to come in two varieties. There's a single-breasted and a double-breasted.
Yep. And so we've both got single-breasted here, just like our coats. Mine has brass buttons actually, which is you don't see as often.
And in the last video, Keller was wearing a double-breasted waistcoat.
So I'll put a picture of that here, and you can look in the last episode. It was double-breasted, just like a double-breasted coat we've talked about.
Exactly. Now there are also some. Over history, there have been several different arrangements of the buttons. If you're really, say, you're starting to get passionate about classical menswear, and especially, more than likely, you're probably starting to get interested in the golden age of menswear from the 40s. You will see some arrangements where it is 6 to 8 buttons, or well, it would be 6 to 8 buttons, but the buttons will kind of come into a triangular form.
Like a V shape.
A V shape where there's only one button at the bottom. And this is actually something, it's interesting.
Those are nice, by the way. I love those.
I've never worn one. It's a little too unconventional for me because I'll wear stuff from the 70s, but then I get very trepidatious to try anything different. But if you look at the 18th century, I was always curious, where did double-breasted come from? And double-breasted garments started with the waistcoat. And I always thought, maybe it was to reinforce the area around the belly when you're riding a horse, because there's a lot of tension on these last few buttons. But in the earliest portraits that I could find of gentlemen wearing a double-breasted waistcoat from the late 1760s, I think is the very first one. What's funny is that they are double-breasted at the top, and then at the bottom they become single-breasted. And I went, I don't really know why.
It's kind of like a mystery.
It's kind of like a mystery. Maybe I can provide a picture here.
Yeah, maybe we'll find something.
We'll find something of what we're talking about. But yeah, you'll have those two arrangements. And one of the big things with the waistcoat, though, is that, or as a vest, as they call it in America. One of the big things about a waistcoat is the fit, right? Because some gentlemen will want to,
As with anything.
as with anything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. We were talking about coats. We've talked about trousers and a little bit about the fit of those. And
Luckily waistcoats are really, really easy to fit compared to the rest.
they can be, yeah. And
They're a lot simpler.
The thing is that you'll rarely ever find one, a three-piece off the rack. You'll usually have to have a suit custom made, or made to measure,
Or find an old
bespoke.
one.
Or you, by chance you find an old one. In my place of business, we have one singular three-piece suit off the rack, and it is a seafoam green.
Ooh.
It's a nice material.
Yeah.
It's a funky color.
It's for someone.
It's for someone.
It's for someone.
It's for a tea party. But the big thing when we're talking about fit, though, is that you need to think about really like the length too. You know?
Yeah.
Because when you wear a waistcoat, the more elements you add to your suit, the more everything has to synergize together very well. It's like a machine. And the more complex the machine, the more those parts have to work together seamlessly. So
There's more places it can break.
There's more places it can break. So for example, if you have a suit with a very high-waisted trouser, your waistcoat needs to be correspondingly short. Now, like in the 18th century, their breeches sat at the hip bone. But their coats were very, very long.
Right.
I say very, very. I just noticed in all of our previous videos, I keep saying very, very.
Very, very.
Were exceedingly long. And as were the waistcoats. The waistcoats were quite long as well.
Yeah, almost the same length.
Almost the same length, but the breeches were also quite low.
Right.
So as trousers went up in
So
there,
did the waistcoat.
so did the waistcoat gets correspondingly.
And it's not that necessarily the waistcoat needs to be shorter, because the rise could be shorter, but you couldn't tell because the waistcoat covers it. As long as your waistcoat is covering, you don't want that ugly gap, but usually the waistcoat gets shorter because it looks better. It cuts your silhouette into nicer, more proportional,
The question is also, because I want to get into that sort of thing. When do you wear a waistcoat? When is it appropriate to wear a waistcoat? And my answer to that question is anytime. Any waistcoat, or any time is appropriate for a waistcoat.
Yeah.
And we'll have several examples of why a waistcoat can be appropriate for every single occasion that you could possibly imagine.
It is part of the suit.
Right. And most of us in our everyday lives don't see them because politicians only wear two-piece suits, navy two-piece suits, with a red or a blue tie. Maybe if they're really daring, they'll wear a gold tie. Ooh. What party does that belong to? I don't know. So the most of the time when you see a three-piece suit, it's at a wedding, like wedding parties. And my favorite is when couples would come in and show me their lookbook.
Yeah.
Of guys wearing linen, trouser, and waistcoat. You cannot just wear a trouser and a waistcoat for anything formal. And
that would be called wrong.
That would be called wrong. And I'm sorry, weddings are formal occasions. You don't try to do this casual garden party wedding. That's not how that works. But they would show me these pictures of gentlemen wearing a waistcoat with a belt. And of course, my super high-waisted trousers don't really illustrate this very well, but with their shirt poking out and those sorts of things.
And that ties into our trouser episode because you need your pants to be high-rise.
Right, well, because like I said, this whole thing's a machine and it has to work together. And when you wear a waistcoat, you can't, for example, you can't really wear a belt.
So I'm going to Google in post three-piece suit. I'm going to put up the first picture on the Google Images, and you're going to see that ugly gap. Right. It's gonna be horrible.
And your trousers can't be. You can't wear a three-piece suit from the 2010s because the trousers are so low-waisted. The coats are so short and teeny tiny that your waistcoat has to be really long.
And it cuts up your proportion.
It just messes up all your proportions. And once again, here's a picture of a Looney Tunes character I found. Long body, little legs.
Same thing.
So, should we show some of these?
Yeah. And so, real quick, I also just want to
yeah.
point out a couple of other important things. Obviously, they have pockets. These ones have flat pockets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Okay, so...
Well, make it quick so I can get to the other features, but just...
After I got this back from the tailor, I went to put my watch in my pocket. And
as you can see, flat
they
pockets
have flaps, and I was going like this, and I went, oh, wait, what? And then I realized, oh, wait. So whoever had this made elected to have pocket flaps sewn over where the pocket...
Wild to me. I've never seen that. I've never imagined that.
I've never seen that either. I may actually... I don't usually like to tinker with the architecture of my vintage too much. This may be something where I make an exception and ask my tailor if he can turn this into a proper pocket with a pocket flap.
Perhaps one of the failures of the 70s experimentation.
Yes.
I've never seen that.
I've never seen that either. They like to play around with certain details, but put it in a super formal fabric so that it kind of...
But anyway.
Pockets,
and we'll show you some examples in a second, can vary. Sometimes there can be 4, sometimes 2, sometimes 3.
You'll have 2 up here, and that's a very British thing.
Yeah, sometimes they'll even have 3, you'll have 1 up here.
You'll see that here in a second, because I've got a British waistcoat.
Another thing that makes it a big difference to me is kind of how low it's cut, right? So you'll see Max, it cuts down quite far, you can see a lot of the time. Mine's a little bit shorter, just poofs out a little bit right here. And there's really one occasion where you need to have a very low cut one, and we'll show you that as well. But otherwise, it's just preference and different style, different cut. We'll talk about an English cut, like Max said. Linings. Sometimes the fabric goes all the way around, like mine, and sometimes the very back will have like a lining.
It's rare to see a waistcoat that has fabric that goes all the way around, and that should be a consideration when you're either purchasing one or having one made. So to have the fabric go all the way around is more casual, as a matter of fact. And I used to know a gentleman who only wore waistcoats with the fabric all the way around. But you also have to remember that is an additional layer of wool on your back. And your back is a place that radiates a lot of heat. And that wool will lead to being more stuffy.
I'll grab some examples that I've brought down.
Let's do the John G. Hardy one.
This one?
Yeah.
So this one belongs to Mr. Max here.
Yeah, so this is a nice little vintage doodad from the 1960s. And some of the identifying factors of that are the fact that it has a pig stitching. The 60s was the last decade that really still did pig stitching. This is made in a very, very heavy, what you call Melton or broadcloth. And broadcloth is a very common English textile in vintage and antique clothes. Why they call it broadcloth is that it was woven on a wider width than standard wool, and then it was boiled and shrunk down into a standard width.
And the key feature is that it's kind of like woven and boiled in a way that's so dense that you don't need to like hem.
Right.
You can just cut it and it's not going to fray.
And in certain antique clothes, going back far enough, it won't be hemmed. In all vintage clothes, they still hemmed it, even though they didn't really have to.
Just why not?
But it has almost a felted texture because of the finishing they would do, where they would take these brushes with metal teeth, and they would tease out the fibers and then roll a block that had a blade and shave it down. But being some of the distinctive features of a British waistcoat. British waistcoats almost always have 6 buttons. American waistcoats almost always have 5. There are certain decades where that rule does not apply, but in almost every decade it does apply. And British waistcoats have...
The very last button there
is what you call a show button. So they only will button the 5, and then the last one cannot actually be buttoned.
Even though there's a buttonhole and you could conceivably, you don't.
Right, and that goes back to of course the 18th century, but waistcoats, as the 18th century progressed, got shorter and shorter to the point where they were cut straight across, and it became kind of inconvenient to button it all the way down. And so then the waistcoats started to be cut away down here.
Yeah.
And that's where the show button comes from. American waistcoats almost always only have 5. And where, like mine, I'll usually button all of them depending on the length of the waistcoat. But when I sit down, I usually unbutton the last one. And then for British waistcoats, it's common to have 4 pockets. This is a more casual styling choice. Most manufacturers do not offer this. You have to either have it custom made or find it vintage.
Yeah.
And these pockets are quite deep. They don't serve really any practical purpose, but except that it's good to keep coins and business cards and things like that.
Yeah, like my keys to my house. I'll just drop them in there.
And then waistcoats usually also too have some kind of back adjustment. There are several mechanisms. This one here that I'm wearing has teeth that will pierce the cloth itself to hold it in place. Some don't. Like Keller's doesn't have any back adjustment.
Right. That's just to get it a snugger fit, right?
But pop quiz, Keller.
Uh-oh.
Why do waistcoats usually have a contrasted thinner back?
Ooh.
Usually made out of a lining material like rayon.
Why?
Where did that come from?
You think? You're gonna say it and you're that makes sense.
I've taken over the show.
You have. I don't know off the top of my head.
So in the 18th century, waistcoats, of course, were the centerpiece, and they were highly embroidered, beautiful, beautiful work done on these silk waistcoats. But that was all very, very expensive. A suit like what some of the courtiers would have worn today would probably cost you around $500,000 to $1 million, and that's not a joke. They were really that expensive. But to save money, because they were buying all of this on credit, they would put like a rough linen, or they would sometimes have literal rags sewn together to create the back, because it was cheap and no one ever saw it because you never took your coat off in public. And that's why to this day, the back is always almost always different, right? Sometimes you'll have the full thing, but that's the anomaly. The standard is to have it like this. And when I would do custom made ones, I usually chose a very plain, like a beige or an ivory, to kind of call back to those days.
So it just comes from saving money.
It comes from saving money because it's cheaper.
It makes sense.
Like this broadcloth, this waistcoat is so heavy that if you were to have this all the way around, one, you would die from the heat.
It'd
but
be unpleasant.
There's so much wool in this textile that it would more than double the cost.
I mean, because it's double the material here.
More than double the material.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kelly, you take it away.
Yeah. So that's this guy. Yeah, really the defining feature of the English cut is just the buttons here. There's a show button that you don't button ever.
And this is
especially the buttons, or the pockets.
So I'm so sorry, Keller, but this is by John G. Hardy is a brand. And if you find one of these, John G. Hardy is a very high quality vintage brand. And you can't, of course, see it on the camera because it's microscopic, but it says by appointment to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Mercers of Woolen Cloth. And anything if you see anything that says by appointment of one of the monarchs of England, that is an extremely high quality garment.
Good stuff.
Yes. That one was $30. I was very proud of that one.
And so here is another. Now this one is from Darcy Clothing. Really, really good brand that I like to use for like reproduction, vintage styled stuff. I'd say the quality is quite good for the cost.
The cloth is very good.
The cloth is great, except the one thing I don't like is the buttons. They kind of come undone, but that's easy to fix.
Yeah.
And so you'll see with these older ones, this is kind of like a Victorian era. Edwardian. And you'll see they actually have lapels here.
I have several waistcoats with lapels.
Absolutely. And usually the way you'll wear these, you always want to match the lapel of your waistcoat to the one of your jacket. Right.
Unless the waistcoat is double-breasted, in which case it's going to be a peak lapel.
Always peak lapel. Or if it doesn't have a lapel, then
that's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But really similar.
Yeah, this is a really pretty cloth too, because it's actually, it looks brown on camera, but it's really brown and black
Yeah, it's
herringbone.
really beautiful, and it's a good material. And you'll see the back that has the adjuster here, and also it has.
This is cotton.
Yeah, it's cotton. So really interesting.
I love to have cotton as a lining.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to find cotton as a lining on your waistcoat, but
It's nice.
it's very nice. It breathes
Breathable,
so
and
much better than rayon.
I think it feels better as well. It's just good old
Yes.
cotton. Can't go wrong with cotton. And then I don't have an example here, but waistcoats, when you go even further back, like Regency, they would have full-on collars that went all the way around, and they'd be worn a bit differently.
I wish I had brought it with me today, but I have a beautiful one. It's maybe we'll show it on another video, but it's a Abercrombie and Fitch
Ooh,
from the 1950s. We'll put a picture on Instagram of it,
Okay.
and it's a foxing vest, which means it was for fox hunting. It was actually made for a woman, because I did extensive research on this waistcoat that I found. Could not find any pictures of men wearing them, only of women wearing them. And it's also in a broadcloth, but it has a. What were we talking about again?
collar.
Oh yeah, sorry folks. But it has the cloth that goes all the way around the back,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a callback to the collars.
Yeah, like in Regency. And here's some pictures of some old actual Regency waistcoats, and you'll see they had these collars that would actually stood up.
Yeah, and it was still to
Yeah.
make the waistcoat as a parallel to the coat itself.
Couple more for you folks, then we'll finish up. So this one I just brought down. Some of you may find it interesting.
Oh, yeah, my least favorite one. So this funky waistcoat. So it's old. It desperately needs cleaning. Is one that I had made.
This is bespoke.
It is bespoke, and it is very long because, like I was explaining, the pant rise was very short. Now this one is made out of a shirt fabric. I saw a painting of a gentleman. I don't know if I can still find it. Maybe I could find it, and we'll put it up here.
Maybe.
Of a gentleman wearing a blue velvet suit with a white silk waistcoat that had occasional little blue florets or whatever embroidered on it. And I really just loved that painting. And then I was at my tailor and I found he had this as a shirt fabric, and I said, make me a waistcoat out of this. And I don't know what I was thinking, because he said, well, he goes, how many buttons you want? I said, I don't know. He goes, you want 5, 6? I want 8 buttons. And I only ever buttoned it up to this
Right.
one here. And I thought, oh, well, because then my tie is like a cravat. And I said, I want pocket flaps. And he said, okay, you got pocket flap. And I said, I want him to have a little point, like the 18th century. He goes, okay, I'll do that for you too. And I said, I want piping along the edge. And he goes, I don't know how to do that. So we went on Google and we looked it up. And he goes, okay, I can do that. He added piping along the edge. This thing is so dirty now, but it was fully the same all the way around.
Yeah. Sort of a pseudo callback to
The 18th century. I thought
Yeah.
I was the coolest thing since sliced bread when I had this.
And it's
made.
pretty. I mean, it's cool. It's a modern take on,
Oh yeah, I wore it with a seersucker suit.
Yeah, but it's nifty.
Yeah, I had a seersucker suit, and it really worked well with that.
And then lastly here,
Oh, this is a
is
gem.
a
This is a true gem.
beauty.
So I
We
gave
might
this.
hold it a bit closer to the camera. So you can
Oh
see
yeah,
better.
yeah.
I don't want it to mess with the focus, but I mean, and I'll put up a picture if we need to. But beautiful, beautiful fabric with this guy. And I'll explain what this is. This is, what year was this?
Okay, so the story behind this waistcoat. So this is a black tie, a true black tie waistcoat. This is the second highest level of formality for a waistcoat. All black tie waistcoats have a shawl collar.
A very low cut. Right?
They're very, very low cut. And the reason
They
being
scoop all the way down.
is black and white tie were the only two occasions in which large amounts of the front of your shirt were displayed. But it was not like the shirts that we're wearing. Those shirts had detachable fronts, highly, highly starched.
Right.
So
They
stiff.
were actually structured.
They were so stiff that you couldn't even bend in them. Well, like how we were explaining with black tie, the idea was that most of the time you're actually standing and talking to people. You're not bending over to grab anything. You have servants for that. This waistcoat I found at Goodwill on the east side of town in a really bad neighborhood for $6. And I saw that and I went, oh wow, I've always wanted a black tie waistcoat, even though I have no occasions anymore to wear a black tie. So I bought it, and I took it home, and it fit me too, no less. It doesn't fit me anymore, but it used to.
Fits me now.
And I was looking at it, and I went, gosh, this is such a fascinating garment. I started noticing something when I would move it around, it kind of jingled. And I would explore it, and I found a flap on the back here, where the buttons are not sewn on, as you can see here on camera. There are holes punched in the fabric, and a brad attaches the button, because these buttons were not meant to actually be worn. They were meant to be taken off and changed with buttons that matched your cufflinks and your studs of your tuxedo shirt. So I took it to a friend of mine who knew a little bit about clothing from the 30s and 40s, and he took a good look at it, and one of the things he noticed too is that the back of the lapel is a brown brushed cotton. The lining is cotton. The front is wool and silk. The chevrons are silk. The rest of it is wool.
And the collar here
is not faced in satin.
It's the exact same material as the rest of it.
It's the exact same material as the rest of it, which is the thing that stopped being done around the 1920s. So that dates it before the 1920s, and coupled with the fact that the buttons are made of, we believe, celluloid, not of plastic, it dates this waistcoat to around 1910.
Which is amazing.
If not a little earlier
and
than that. It's in very, very good condition, and the only thing that had been done to it, and
I had it altered.
Keller did have it altered. He did a very good job getting it altered. Is that it had piecing on the side here, and that's a common feature of waistcoats when you outgrow them, is that you can have a piece of fabric added to the edge, because people aren't really supposed to see that.
Yeah, and you make it a little bit bigger.
It allows you to get a little bit bigger, and my theory is that it was actually taken from the adjustable strap in the back, because there are very faint signs that it did at one time.
There's evidence that it's here, but since removed. So it's been worn a little bit, but excellent condition.
But it's an excellent condition, no sweat stains or anything. Don't expect to go to any Goodwill and find something that is over 110 years old. But this was a real treasure.
Yeah.
And what's sad, and this is kind of the thing with vintage clothing, all these clothes have a story to tell. And you kind of wonder whatever happened to this garment that it's now in my hands. And my theory is that somebody over 100 years ago bought this or had it made. I suspect they had it made because there are no tags or branding or anything in it. And then they died, and their son inherited it, and he didn't wear any of this, so he put it in a trunk. And then when he died, his grandchildren found it.
And they don't know what it is anymore.
And they don't know what it is, and they don't care. And so they gave it to Goodwill.
Which is sad.
Which is sad, because at Goodwill you can find things, but that's also a company where people can buy your clothes, and anyone can buy them, and they may not really value and cherish them like this, because this is a true gem.
This is history.
It's history.
This could go in a museum.
And I guarantee you, whatever one or two parties this thing was worn to were just the most lovely affairs that the things that we don't get to experience.
This was worn over 100 years ago. Amazing, really.
And I'm so pleased that even though it doesn't fit me and I have no occasions to wear it, that I could give it to Keller. And so its story continues. Where it's almost at the point where it belongs in a museum, but its story. And that's the thing about vintage, right? It gets to live on, like this suit.
Living garments.
Right. This suit knows the story of the person who had it made and everything, and it's all lost to history, but it gets to have a second life with me.
One thing, I recently got a suit from a thrift shop, and it fits me excellently. It was from Goodwill as well. It was the last episode. in the pocket, I think after that episode, I found a little card from a funeral.
And that was probably the last time it was worn.
It's probably the only time it was worn. That's probably why I bought it.
That's exactly right, Keller. You're right.
It's kind of sad, but also kind of beautiful that this garment can live on and live through that.
Well, there's a 3-button charcoal flannel one that I have. I'll wear it for one of our episodes, and it's a very nice suit. It's wool and cashmere, very soft. It holds a crease in the pant like crazy for being a flannel. But in the hip pocket of the pant, it had a movie ticket in it.
Really?
Yeah, and it was, but the movie ticket was a little bit marred because I think the suit had been dry cleaned with that ticket in the pocket. And I have to think that was the last time that suit was worn. Someone went to the movies wearing the suit.
That's the one I gave you, right?
Yeah, that's the one you gave me. And,
that's my neighbor's suit. He bought it, so.
Okay, well that's the last time he wore it.
Yeah, show me the ticket and I'll ask him about it. I'll see if he remembers a little movie date or something.
Yeah, and so that's a beautiful thing. It's like my red waistcoat, which we will, put a picture of it.
You'll wear it eventually.
It has the piecing on there, and one has to wonder whether the lady that wore it, because you don't go fox hunting that often, even if you're English gentry anymore. No, it's illegal there now, but one wonders whether she had either gained weight or maybe she had become pregnant.
Yeah.
And she was going on one last hunt before she got too pregnant to ride horse, That's one of the beautiful things. And the waistcoats, can really tell a lot of stories.
Waistcoats, like I said, are some of the easiest to fit because they're more simple, and also by far the easiest to alter. It's easy to take them in. I do it at home. It takes like 10 minutes. And there's a lot more options to let it out. And so the waistcoat stories can live on for a lot longer than a lot of the other garments that get more used and worn. That's why I have this waistcoat that Max gave me that's over 100 years old, and the oldest suits I have are from the 40s.
Right, and with the waistcoat, it's such a way to tie in your entire outfit, like we said at the beginning. Even if you do a sport coat and a slack, I've done it where I've had a khaki pair of cavalry twill trousers, and I have a brown herringbone tweed waistcoat, and even like a gray sport coat, and a shirt that has a little stripe in it or something. This is a few years ago because I don't wear striped shirts anymore, but it really pulls together that entire outfit.
Yeah, and when you're wearing odd outfits, so not a suit of clothes, but rather odd trousers, odd coat, an odd waistcoat or even a matching one can really tie it together and make it feel more intentional.
And people would notice it and they respect it.
Absolutely, yeah.
They look at it and they go, people would say, I like your vest.
Exactly, yeah. Yesterday I went to the movies, and the lady there, I bought my ticket, she was like, 3-piece suit, I respect it. And I said, thank you.
And of course, there's no reason why you, the viewer, can't also do that. Because all of these things, like we're explaining that bespoke one that I had made, that one was $500, and I'll never spend that much money on a waistcoat again. But most of this has cost $20, $30, maybe $50.
This is $30, and so we were planning on talking about waistcoats and shirts. Seems now I've talked about waistcoats, and we've gone into kind of our philosophy about thrifting and then passing on these clothes. That's fine. We'll do shirts next episode. What was I saying? Totally forgot. I think we're just going to kind of wrap it up now. I think we've talked about waistcoats for a while. And just as a kind of roadmap, I remembered now. We're going to finish up. We're going to do maybe 1 or 2 more episodes in this kind of series, and wrap up with our grand finale, which is how to fit a suit.
Yes.
Which is hopefully going to make all of this applicable to you and really tie it all together.
We're really talking about the integral parts of the suit. And there will be, those integral parts: coat, trouser, waistcoat,
shirt
and neckwear.
And then some accessories as well.
Yeah, and then the accessories, that kind of come after that. But, those are the main essentials.
And then in the next kind of series that we'll do, we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the fabrics we were talking about. Cavalry twill, herringbone, as you just mentioned. We're going to talk about where you can find things like this affordably, because neither of us are rich, right? We're not, you know. And we're probably also gonna be a little bit more specific about how this can be useful for you, and how you as a viewer who maybe isn't as enthusiastic about menswear as we are and just wants to dress like a gentleman, how your wardrobe might be assembled a little bit differently to ours. Because we're enthusiasts, of course we have a lot of suits. We'll eventually start talking about, you know, how many suits should you have for, you know, depending on, you know, what you need them for. And because, you know, I have like 10 in my closet, you might not need 10 in your closet.
I don't wear all of them. Some of them don't fit. Some of them are very seasonal. I have 27. But don't be alarmed by that number, because I have spent precious little money on most of these clothes. And
that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how you can do that and sort of how you personally should assemble your wardrobe to suit yourself.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think this first series, we're talking very much from the perspective of enthusiasts trying to, and you know, people who know everything about it, and we're just giving you all the information. I think next series we're going to try to, or in the following kind of series, as we kind of move on to some more free form, less, maybe some less structured like chain of episodes. We'll do some real educational ones about fabrics. We'll do some really personable ones, you know, talking about how to.
And we're just here to have fun. You know, we're here to have a casual conversation about clothes. You know, it's not meant to be an overly produced sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're just here joining us in this home, having a nice conversation.
You'll see the set has changed since the last episodes.
I'm very comfortable today. I'm almost falling asleep.
Yeah. It was a decision I made 5 minutes before filming. Like, let's change it up.
My home does not have furniture like this.
But like Max said, it's a conversation, and it's one we want you to join. So please, right now, this very minute, I'm sure there's some thought going through your head about something we talked about. Put it in the comments, and we'll address it next time we film.
Add a comment as if you were here, talking with us. You know, we want to engage in that.
Because we want to talk to you, and you know what we're going to do in later, kind of after this main first series, to introduce it all. We'd love to get people on the show. Invite other people. Maybe we'll call on the phone, figure that out. I don't know. But hopefully we'll get some people in, talk about some different subjects. I know we mentioned a couple different ideas we had, I think in like episode 1 or something in our introduction. So please leave a comment about anything at all, or if you know some person, feel free to ask, like with Mr. Max, as he mentioned in the beginning. But please please subscribe. That shows that there's interest, and we'll keep going. And again, the biggest thing you can do is just share it with your friend. Share it with someone who you think could benefit from this information.
All right.
Any questions?
Thank you so much for joining us today on our 6th episode of Life in Apparel.
I've been Keller.
I'm Maxwell. And we'll see you next time.
Au revoir. You did good. Did you see in the